Today, we have been working on layering your quilt, quilting your quilts, and we are working on also binding the quilts and preparing our binding for quilting. So I wanted to show you something fun that I made. This is a modern log cabin quilt block, okay? And I made this the size for a pillow, and we are going to use this quilt pattern right here for me to go ahead and demonstrate how to put a binding on, because it's a small enough of a project that we can go ahead and see the entire binding process. So I'm going to be making a couple of these to film some videos too. So let me go ahead and show you why I made this. I have some old pillows out in my backyard, and this is a feather pillow. Tell me where you guys are coming from. Are you guys planning on planting a garden this summer or anything like that? Do you grow plants? I'm just new into learning how to garden and new at learning how to grow plants, okay? I've always had a black thumb, and I want to say that we can learn anything, right? Hello, Victor. Hello, Amanda. Hello, Liz. I love seeing you guys. So, a part of my backyard is I have a really nice overhanging covered patio, and we have kind of like an outdoor couch out there and table and chairs. So I wanted to kind of freshen up some of my pillows. So, but I gotta show you this. Is this not just awful? Okay, I left this pillow out all winter, and I'm going to tell you why. This is actually a down pillow in here. And what I would do is I would take this down pillow, because my plants weren't really growing, and I would take this down pillow and I would take a feather out of it, usually a longer feather. There we go. I got a feather out of the down pillow, and I would take this feather and I would go wiggle it, because my garden was not, I had to pollinate the flowers, and I used the feather to do this. Well, I left this pillow out all winter long over by where our garden is, and there's kind of like a chair set over there and a little, love seat over there. So this got completely winterized. So we need to freshen it up. You guys might have some fun things to freshen up outside. Hello, Linda. Hi, Myra. Victor says, grew up on a farm, wish I owned a house, but I do grow plants and flowers on my 11th floor balcony. Perfect. I am actually starting to feel better about myself, and with that I can learn things at no matter what age. And if you're new to quilting, you can learn how to quilt, because if I can learn how to garden, you can learn how to quilt. And I'm by no means some expert or anything. So I'm going to drop this to the ground, but this is what we are replacing. And I thought you guys would have fun, but this is what we are going to be replacing with this pillow top. I am going to quilt this first, and then I'm going to throw some other ones out there. Okay, so this, when I measure this right here, it's an 18-inch pillow cover. And so I have actually made this. I love this. It looks so summery, doesn't it? It almost looks like pink lemonade. Maybe this is the water and the lemonade and a little bit of like a touch of strawberry lemonade. I don't know. But it just looks like summer to me. And I'm so loving the freshness and everything of being able to go outdoors and be able to hang out in the backyard as a family or whatever that might be. So this is what we are working on. I will have this pattern available for you guys a little bit later. I just kind of threw this together because I wanted something to teach you the binding on. But so what we're going to do on this little quilt top is I'm going to show you today a couple different tips and tricks. So I have actually layered this quilt top. I just put kind of like a not really high quality quilter's cotton on the back of this. And on the front of this, I have, the top, and then I've just put a thin batting in there. So I want to give this pillow a look of a quilted pillow. So we're going to go ahead and do that. I have just put some pins in this, some safety pins. I really do prefer safety pins, but we are going to also look at thread basting when we do the 20 by 20 inch, okay? But I wanted to show you something here. One thing that you want to do, especially when you're prepping your quilt and your fabrics, is you do want to make sure all of your threads are looking good, your seams are looking good, and all of that. But here I am using a white fabric. So on this white fabric, I can see just a tiny bit of that aqua blue peeking out there, okay? So we want to, I don't know if you guys can see that in the lighting or anything like that, but we want to go ahead and address our seams and which way they are going. The way that this was sewn in, my seam is coming up this way. So it's not pressed to the dark side based on how I sewed on these other sashing strips. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into this and we are going to trim out some of that aqua blue so it doesn't pop through to the front of the quilt. So I thought this was, as I was working on this today, I thought this is a great tip to show you guys. And so I'm going to go ahead and flip the camera. I hope I've got a good angle on that. Yep, there we go. So let me move my sewing machine a little bit further out. So what I did here, and let me hold this up to the camera up here. I can just see a hint of darkness through this white fabric. And I love the white and how it pops with that aqua. So I'm gonna fold over this piece right here. And I'm gonna show you, and I just recently did this with a black and white quilt. You guys have not seen this quilt top yet. I'm anxious for you to see it, but when we were doing the quilting on it, we were like, oh my gosh, we have let so many things bleed through. So you want to make sure that your quilt top, you've got like stray threads kind of not coming through if you're working with a lighter fabric. And if you have a situation like this, because you can see I constructed this and my fabric is going to the lighter side versus the darker side, which is just fine. That can happen based on how you're stitching together. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come along and shorten the seam allowance for this aqua fabric. So I'm actually going to put on my glasses because I don't want to accidentally cut something I don't want to cut. And I'm going to just trim this a little bit, just a hair off, so that you don't see fabrics coming through. So you want to trim your threads before you quilt. You also want to make sure if you're using lighter fabrics or something like that, that you don't have your back threads coming through your quilt, the top of the quilt. So that's just something to kind of keep an eye on. And since this is such a bold color, I did do a color ombre here where we're going with a lighter shade of yellow, a lighter shade of aqua here, and then having it lead out. So I'm going to go ahead and just, I'm going to do one more trim here. And then I'm going to show you what I have planned for quilting this quilt top. We're going to do a combination of some straight machine quilting on the domestic machine. And then we're going to experiment with this quilt top with a little bit of hand quilting. Okay, so we're going to do a bit of both and just play around with this. And that's what's really fun about some pillow tops that are quilted, is that you can go ahead and experiment with different types of quilting and things that you might want to try out or to do on another type of project. So I feel good with my layering here. I could actually stick more pins in it. I'm going to just go ahead and put this over here a little bit. And I have pressed this with all of my layers together, and that holds it together too. So I'm going to stick another pin over here. Now, before we start quilting, we want to make a plan. This is, you guys, this quilt block is a log cabin quilt block, okay? This is a traditional log cabin. So what you do is we're sewing strips together and we're adding those together as a strip, so it looks like there's independent rectangles in here. This is a strip, this is a strip, this is a strip. So this is a really fast sew. And yes, Linda, I will get this pattern for you ready because I think it is just so fun and it's playful and it's fun to use with small scraps that you might have around that you'd like to play with and combine and freshen things up, whatever you want to do. And we're going to experiment with some things. Now, whenever you start your quilting process, especially straight line quilting or whatever, we're going to want to make a plan. So let's go ahead and look at this. I am going to start where some of my first seams were for this log cabin. I'm going to start here and I'm going to stitch along this and I'm going to come up and around and I'm going to go along the whole circumference of this, okay? So can you see the order of how I'm going to stitch this? I am also going to stitch just right over, instead of exactly stitching the ditch, I'm going to just stitch just right over this seam line. Okay, so I'm going to stitch just slightly a hair over on that seam line right there. I'm not going to stitch exactly in the ditch because I want to show off some of our quilting for this. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come back with some hand quilting of some floss, some pearl floss, and we're going to do some hand quilting along each of these seams. So that's the plan. So you want to make a plan, and when I made my plan, I also strategically did not put any of my pins where it's going to interfere with my stitching or my sewing that I'm going to be doing here. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start right here, come along, and then we're going to go up here. And this method, so you want to plan out some of your stitching. So we're going to start right here and come along. So this is our start point. I'm going to put this over to my sewing machine on the domestic sewing machine. And doing a pillow top is something fun that you can experiment with, but it's also a great tool to be able to experiment with different quilting techniques or things like that, but not feel like you're wasting fabric, right? And a pillow, a quilted pillow is a beautiful gift to give. So now I'm going to go ahead and move this camera right here so it is right on, I'm sorry, let me go ahead and shift this. So it's on my sewing machine so you can actually see me pushing this through on the sewing machine. So I want to change that other camera angle. And I think I've got all the lights turned on. Let me move this light a little bit more so we have a little bit more light. Okay, so I'm starting. I am going to actually start right here and come around and then come around again. Okay, so, and I am increasing my stitch length from, say a 2.5 to a 3.5 to a 4. I don't want my stitch length to be too tiny when I'm making these quilting stitches. And remember, I'm going to do it a hair over, and I do have a walking foot on my sewing machine right here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start it. Oh, my machine became unthreaded, probably from me pulling around the fabrics and things. Okay, let me move that over. So I'm going to put that down. The other thing that I am going to do as I'm stitching, if your sewing machine has it, please use your needle down, needle up position. So you can see right here, when I push this button on my sewing machine, my needle goes down and it's going to stay down every time I stop my sewing machine. So I'm going to just bring this over just a little bit. And remember, I'm going to show you how the stitches can be seen. Okay, so we're just going to come around, and we've got some nice, it's really nice working with the walking foot and your feed dogs underneath because it will evenly push this through. Okay, oh, I need my needle down, okay, because I'm going to pivot this now. We can actually make that circle a little bit larger. Let me look at this. Hold on, let's go maybe right like that. And I could bring the sewing machine over here so you guys can see a little bit of a close-up on the actual machine quilting. Okay, so let's go ahead. So, you guys, hi Jane. I am quilting a fun quilted pillow here. And I'm just bringing this along. I'm allowing the machine to feed the fabric through. I'm not trying to push it too fiercely. Okay, and remember, we've made a plan and none of my safety pins are in the way. So I strategically put those safety pins where I wanted it. I don't want a whole bunch of safety pins because I don't want it to be too top heavy. So this is a great way to experiment. I'm going to trim off this excess thread right here. This is a great way to experiment with domestic machine quilting. So you feel more and more comfortable putting your regular quilts through your sewing machine. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at this. You can see I'm just stitching a hair over on, I'm not stitching exactly in the ditch, I'm stitching just a hair over. So that way we can see how beautiful and pretty this stitching is. So let's go ahead and bring this along. And bring this right over to the edge. Oh, I think I went a little bit too far. We're going to just backtrack this real fast. Hold on for one moment. Sorry about that. Okay, needle up. I need my needle up. There we go. we're going to come right over here, and I can unpick that. So we're going to just get a good little, okay, needle down in the needle down position. So you can see my needle stopped in the needle down position right there, okay? And I like to do that so that I can just pivot this. And so if you ever buy a new sewing machine, the only thing I really want in a sewing machine for me is to have that needle up, needle down position is what I want in my sewing machine. I can take any kind of sewing machine, but for quilting, I love the needle up, needle down position. Does anybody have that feature on your sewing machine? Needle up, needle down. So that my quilt, my needle will always stay down in that down position. I had my mother's sewing machine for many, many years, and it died on me. And my husband asked me at that time, asked me what sewing machine I would like. And I said, I don't care what sewing machine I have. I just want that needle up, needle down. If you do not have the needle up, needle down, you're going to want to come over here with your hand and make sure your needle is in the down position, so then you can just pivot your quilt around, okay? And this just looks absolutely wonderful, doesn't it? So let me go ahead. I'm so tempted to just finish this off. It's so pretty. So let me go ahead and show you what this is looking like and how I'm just slightly off on one side on this. And I'll probably need to come back in and do a few of these, and you'll be able to see this. I'll have some instructions up and some information about this modern log cabin. So this truly is a log cabin quilt. And sometimes you picture log cabin quilt blocks as a old-fashioned quilt block, but you can see with the modern twist to this, you can't even recognize it as a log cabin quilt block with this modern twist to it. I think log cabins are so fun. There are so many different things that you can do with a log cabin quilt block. Okay, so let's go ahead and just bring this around. I kind of want a continuous position here. We're going to let that go in the down position. Bring that back over. I'm just going a hair over. We're not stitching in the ditch, but we're stitching with our straight line. So this is a straight line quilting technique with your domestic sewing machine, but not having to worry about. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at this. And I'm going to push my sewing machine to the side. And I'm going to come back on here and do some more stitching. So can you see how, let me go ahead and pull this over, how this stitching is just a hair over from the stitch in the ditch line. So a lot of people like to stitch in the ditch, but I would actually like to kind of show off the quilting with this quilted quilt top and show that off. And I am actually using just a really faint aqua color thread. So I'm not using a white thread, I'm just using a really faint aqua color. And doesn't that look just so lovely on there? I'm going to come back in here and get some more of these lines coming around. But what we are going to do is we're going to use some floss, some pearl cotton floss, so like an embroidery floss, and come in here and do some hand slow stitching. So I want to be able to show you the hand slow stitching that you can actually do. Amanda, yeah, that needle up, needle down position, and you don't have to spend a lot of money. Sewing machines are, that's just a great feature to have in your sewing machine. Okay, so I just love how fun and bright this is. We're going to use this. Let me flip that camera around. We are actually going to use this as a quilt pillow to actually show you how to do the binding. And we're going to do the instructions on that. I'm actually going to film it as a short form video so that you can see how to pivot your corners. So you've got a nice corner on your corners. And we're also going to show you how to join your quilt, your binding on a bias strip at the very end of everything. So it's really going to be a lot of fun. Oh, let me make sure I'm going over here. I can't wait to see you guys. I'm going to be making another couple more of these just for something fun and bright out on the patio. This would even be fun with a red and a green type of shades and an ombre look right there. Sometimes if we play around with colors, with our fabrics, you just come out with something just absolutely beautiful. So anyways, Lynette, it's so good to see you here, and I just love it. We will go ahead and, yes, have a really, really great weekend. I'll be back on Monday. We'll do some more of this. We'll do some of the slow stitching, and maybe we'll do the slow stitching later and get to our binding video. We'll figure it out. Anyways, can't wait to see you guys. Have a great weekend, and we'll be back to quilting with you on Monday. Have a good one. Bye-bye.